Let's bring in Mr. Jide. He joins us on the program. Bukola has this one.
Yes, indeed. In less than 24 hours, about 1 million Ekiti residents will head to the polls to decide who becomes the next governor. Will they retain the incumbent, or will they choose from the other candidates that are positioning, to take up the Alagbaka government house in Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti state capital? And so there are so many issues, that are set up to decide who the next leader will be in Ekiti State. Of course, we've got all our correspondents in different parts of Ekiti State to bring us up to speed, to give us a sense of the pulse of the people amid this election. But let's bring in our guest analyst this morning to help us also look at some of the insights that will determine the election in Ekiti State. Mr. Jide is a public affairs analyst. He joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Mr. Ojo. It's good to have you on the show again.
Good morning, Bukola. Good morning, Jeffrey. It's my pleasure.
Yes. I'd like to begin, where we took off from as far as the Ekiti election is concerned. Jeffrey was, talking about some very interesting things about, how this has been overshadowed by other issues at the national level, and perhaps very few Nigerians may even be paying attention to Ekiti State. From where you stand, is that the case, or this is just because Ekiti, like a few other states, holds elections in an off cycle, or if you like, staggered manner, as had been determined historically by the courts in past elections? So where do you see this election being impacted by issues at the national level and, of course, at home?
Thank you very much. So it's not impossible that the Ekiti people and Ekiti election will be impacted by the macroeconomic policies of the APC government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They are human beings. They also go to the same market, whether you are APC, PDP, any Labour Party member. You are not going to get a discount buying food or buying petrol, or even in terms of rent that you have to pay on your accommodation. So definitely it's going to impact. But whether it will be the sole determinant of who wins tomorrow is a different kettle of fish, because head or tail, wherever you run to, everybody is feeling the heat. Whether even for those of us in Abuja, it's double jeopardy. Rents are soared by over 100%. Food inflation is astronomical. So everyone in Nigeria, unless you are not in Nigeria, everyone feels the economic impact of the macroeconomic policies of the APC government under Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Now let's look at Ekiti itself ahead of this election, in terms of INEC preparedness and the campaign, as we have seen from the candidates. Have they approached this election with the level of seriousness that should rival these issues, that should match up these issues that you have outlined? Or has it been, rather lukewarm as against what Ekiti really was like in past elections? Did you also get that sense?
Bukola, let me tie it to the economy. If INEC, and they don't usually publish the budgets of what they spent on each state election. If INEC would give us the cost of organizing 2022 governorship election and what it's going to spend in this election, you will see that it may actually quadruple, because you are not going to pay the vendors the same amount. You are not going to pay the poll officials the same amount. You are not going to the cost of procuring sensitive and non-sensitive material. Well, I mean, the general election coming, INEC is requesting for over ₦1 trillion. We've never ever reached ₦1 trillion benchmark in our elections since 1923. But now, this commission will need over ₦1 trillion to conduct 2027 election. And so, economic-wise, yes, it's going to cost the electoral management body a lot more. And to the best of my knowledge, and I've been doing media rounds, INEC said they are very prepared, and this will be a litmus test for Professor Joash Uduamu-Piton. Don't forget that the last time, the first baptism of fire he had was in November 2025 in Anambra, but it was barely 2 weeks in office as at the time that election was held. Perhaps the February 2026 area council election in Abuja here, yes, that is a council election. But in terms of election that one can say he actually superintended over the preparations, I think this is Ekiti Osaku governorship election. And the commission has repeatedly assured from the resident electoral commissioner, Dr. B.C. Omosa-Indemi and all the staff, they said they are ready to give us credible elections. We hope, pray, and we support them to succeed. But is the political class ready to support the commission? Because yes, the electoral management body shoulders heavier responsibility in terms of preparing, in terms of deployment of both materials but it cannot single-handedly deliver credible elections. I'm just reading this morning that police in Ekiti State said they have mapped out 460 flashpoints. I hope that they just didn't do mapping, but they have also deployed efforts to checkmate the bad boys from undermining the election. Because INEC will not do that. INEC does not have the resources, does not have the legal power to make arrests or to investigate. It's the police. Then you look at the political class. It's been said that the major challenge to this election tomorrow will be vote buying. And that also ties to economy. Remember, Ekiti State have a notorious challenge of Diboko Sebe. That's vote and cook a pot of soup, or what they otherwise call stomach infrastructure. And I have been to Ekiti a number of times. I think I was there. I was there in 2014. I was there in 2018 during the two off-cycle governorship election in that state. It was only in 2022 I didn't go, and perhaps this one I will not be there. But I've been to Ekiti twice this year in an election-related matters, February, March this year. I won't mention under which organization I went so that I don't sound like self-promotion. But by and large, vote buying, vote trading, and violence are the two major challenges that if the political class does not do the needful to rein in their supporters, their members, their chieftains, if they don't try to do that, it's going to undermine the election. With the best of intention from INEC, we don't want to hear tomorrow that people are giving 20,000 to go and vote, 10,000 to go and vote, or that there is violence or kidnapping. We do know security-wise, and that's why I'm happy that the security agencies said they have mapped out 460 flashpoints, particularly in areas like Ileje-Media and Moba local government. They are having serious crisis of kidnapping in those two local governments. And in fact, some members, some Ekiti indigenes are still in captivity as we speak. Not just that it doesn't make headline like the case in Oyo and Borno. But some abductions are taking place this year. I don't know. I'm not too sure whether those abductees have been released. I think they were abducted in church or some places.
All right, so, if I may come in, yes. Just a moment, so that we can expand the conversation. I'm reading through or looking at some of the highlights of the Yaga Africa pre-election press statement, looking at what they've discovered so far. And I went straight to the recommendation, just in alignment with what she said. And I want to read recommendation number 4 and ask my question. Political parties and candidates must publicly renounce vote buying, and voters are encouraged to reject inducement and protect the value of their votes. Sustained voter education on the dangers of vote buying, vote trading rather, remains essential in the days leading up to the election. We have less than, in fact, it's in hours now. So let's just call it 24 hours because the ballot opens, I think, about 8:30 or so. The polling unit opens about that time for people to come cast their ballot. So talk to us about what you perceive will be voter apathy or otherwise, and reinforce this conversation around vote buying. Is there really a cure? I expecting politicians not to be politicians, from my point of view, is almost impossible. It is now the law enforcement to see what they can do to save the people from selling their votes based on who prices them high or low.
You are not going to exterminate vote trading, no matter, I mean, the 2026 Electoral Act actually criminalized vote trading. But you can't stop politicians from doing what they intend to do. It can only be reduced. Let me tell you an experience I had in 2018 when I was in Ifaki to observe the election. What I saw was that when you vote here, someone will pass you a tally, not money, a tally, and then you go further down, there is a sawmill within that complex. So you go further to this somewhere behind the sawmill and collect your money. You use the tally to collect money. In another polling unit, I saw people writing their names and their account numbers. So at that time, what that party or party agent has decided to do was not to handle cash or to hand over cash to the voters, but to do transfer. And you know, today, in fact, internet banking and mobile banking has become the norm. So if somebody collects your account details and sends you money, it will not put vote buying there. It will say payment for service. How will you contradict that it was not payment for service, even if you see him making the transfer? So the politicians have found innovative ways of engaging in this vote trading. And because of the article, because of poverty level, yes, Ekiti is very educated. In fact, when you go to their farmlands and you think you are seeing a farmer, if you are not careful, you insult him in English, he will respond to you fiercely because the industry in Ekiti is education. But then you asked me a question earlier about the impact of macroeconomic policies on the people. These are people that are facing existential challenge of paying their bills. Food is not cheap, rent is not cheap. They have to pay other bills, they have to buy data, they have to, so many things.
All right, Mr. Ojo, if we can pause for a moment, my apologies, please, because we understand our colleague, Ado-Ekiti is joining us from Ado-Ekiti, where he's going to give us update as to what he's seeing and what he's hearing, just general feelers. Ado-Ekiti, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you guys doing over there?
We're good, we're good. We can see, it looks like there was light showers this morning, but it looks quite peaceful, nothing too intense. Walk us through what we need to know.
Well, it's a wet morning down here in Ado-Ekiti, the state capital, and as I'm talking to you, it's drizzling. But you know, that's what we do in Channels Television, under the rain, under the sun. We bring the news to you in your home, everywhere, at your fingertips. So we arrived here yesterday. It's been a vibrant city, you know, the influx of security agencies, politicians, journalists, election observers, civil society groups, all coming for Saturday's governorship election here in Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti state capital. And you could also know that yesterday the campaigns ended due to INEC's deadline. And we saw politicians, political parties crisscrossing the state for the last-minute campaign. We also know that yesterday INEC deployed all the sensitive materials to the registration area council centers across the 16 local government areas in Ekiti State here. And it's by and large, like we say, it's always looking like Christmas. So here in Ado-Ekiti, it's looking like there will be election because yesterday people took polling units outside Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital, were seen traveling to their local governments ahead of Saturday's governorship elections. So it's looking like there will be election here on Saturday in Ado-Ekiti.
Well, beyond the look and feel in Ado-Ekiti, what is the thinking of the people? I wonder if you've interacted with them. How excited are they, or the lack of it, about this election, and how it would determine the turnout in tomorrow's exercise?
Okay, like I told you, we arrived here yesterday, so we've not done much on that. But from the few people I was able to speak to, they're excited. There's this enthusiasm that they want to exercise their civic responsibility on Saturday. So I want to believe that there will be a large turnout of voters on Saturday for the governorship election.
There were concerns, yesterday expressed on our sister political program about the presence of aliens, those who are not particularly journalists, and that, they may not mean well for the elections. Have you made any such observations? And talk to us relatedly now about security in Ado-Ekiti, the state capital where you are, and perhaps you're hearing anything else about other parts of Ekiti State.
Okay, yesterday, like I said, we saw a long convoy of security agencies here in Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital. And from the NSCDC, we heard that 10,000 personnel have been deployed for this election. Why for the police, we've not really gotten the figures for the police, but they said they're on ground to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order. And people don't go around, some people don't go around with ID cards. So for the aliens you talked about, we definitely don't know who are aliens and who people that also mean well for the election and people that don't mean well for the election. But from what the security agencies are saying, they said they are across the 16 local government areas of Ekiti State to ensure that there's a smooth election on Saturday and of law and order.
Doctor, thank you for reporting. Whatever happens next, we'll be here to bring people up to speed. Dr. Kuteyi is our correspondent live on ground in Ado-Ekiti. Bukola.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to pick up from what Tokwe has told us about security as we return to Mr. Ojo. Mr. Ojo, I wonder if you also paid a bit of attention to the conversation on our sister political program yesterday, where the candidate of the other party expressed concern about intimidation, harassment, arrest of, supporters. From that particular revelation, does it make you worried about the election, about whether or not this would be free and fair? Or do you think security agents and INEC have a hang of it?
Well, Bukola, let me tell you, like I told you, I was in Ekiti on election-related scoping mission in February and March. And what we picked up, first in the pre-election period, the secretariat of ADC was attacked in October 2025. There were damages done to the secretariat. We saw it. We have pictures of those damages. Then the opposition complained that the state agency for signage has slammed 5 million naira on, is it 50 million or 5 million? I'm not too sure now. But millions of naira, which they said was just too expensive for them to pay if they want to mount billboards. I think it's 50 million that they have to pay. And these opposition parties, many of them are struggling. So, because we did ask questions, why is it that we are only seeing the ruling parties billboards and posters everywhere? And we were told by the opposition at that time that the state agency for signage and advert said if they want to paste any billboards, they have to pay millions of naira. something either 50 million or 5 million. I'm not too certain now. Then you also notice that there is low intensity intimidation harassment of opposition. For instance, we are told that some of the even the internal APC in Ekiti faced internal rumbling and internal rumbling. For instance, there are two aspirants that were disqualified who actually took the party to court. One of such cases was being determined by appeal courts, like on Wednesday. Mrs. Jumoke Omowumi and Engineer Kayode Ojo allegedly took the party to court over their purported disqualification during the primary. So some of their supporters alleged that they were under threat and there were harassment and molestation if they identify you as not belonging to the camp of the governor. Then the opposition too, particularly the PDP, made claims of harassment in Nkere, his hometown, and all of that. But you know that you won't have a very smooth election anywhere where there will be no. The one that is condemnable is when it becomes an high intense violence. Because ahead of this election, the Kuka Center and the National Peace Committee actually facilitated the signing of peace accord. I think last month, the peace accord was signed by all the parties and their chairmen, and all because we want to have a peaceful election. So it's just that when you compare this election and previous election, you find out that compared to 2022, 2018, 2014, this election is about the most peaceful in terms of campaigns. It's not like there are no issues. Like I've tried to give you, both internally and externally, there are issues within the ranks of APC and among the opposition parties. But be that as it may, you cannot compare what happens in this election to what happens in 2022 when there were three frontline candidates, Bisikola Ole of PDP and Engineer Shwegmo of SDP and Abayomi, Biodun Abayomi Oyebanji of APC. At that time, in fact, the Hula Baloo was much higher than what we are witnessing now. I cannot independently confirm that there are aliens or there are strangers, but you know, in every election, there are different people who will be mobilized to come. For instance, there are vendors, vehicle operators who will be brought in from Lagos, from anywhere, to come and provide ancillary services in terms of transportation. Don't forget, there are 177 wards, and there are over 2,445 polling units, which will be served. So you cannot have only Ekiti people, managing that process. There are a lot of observers on ground. There are a lot of security agencies on ground. There are a lot of journalists on ground. So to say that some people are aliens, yes, there are aliens. I would have been there if I have the opportunity myself. I may be considered to be an alien because I'm not from Ekiti State.
All right, a fantastic point you've raised. But before we leave the Ekiti conversation and jump into maybe another part of politics, if we have the time, I want you to speak to us about your outlook. In terms of security, what are you expecting? Are you expecting to be peaceful? In terms of INEC's performance, this is a litmus test for Professor Joash Amopitan. This is his first major election outside the area council election under the new Electoral Act. So this is first. As governorship election, this is the 2026 Electoral Act, and as chairman of the party of the commission, this is going to be his first. So your outlook on security, INEC's performance, and especially voter turnout in 1 minute if you can.
Okay. So in terms of security, your guy there, Kute, just told us that NSCDC has deployed 10,000. We don't know how many thousands police has deployed, but usually you see prison, you see immigration, you see even anti-corruption agencies like ICPC, EFCC deploying to counter vote buying. So I believe if they have done their own work, as to say that they have mapped out 460 hotspots, flashpoints, then I believe that they will make necessary deployment to checkmate any harassment, abduction, intimidation tomorrow. In terms of INEC, what I will be looking out for is how early they commence. Recall that area council election that was held in February this year, in 55% of polling units, INEC did not deploy. INEC election did not start as at 8:30 that INEC said it will start. And I wonder if by today you have moved to registration area centers, RAC centers, which is the ward level. Why is it always a sticky point to move from that RAC center to the polling unit? So much so that we will not be hearing that election did not commence as at when scheduled. So I'm looking at early commencement of votes. I hope Amukito will be able to win that over. I'm looking at functionality of the beavers, that's a biometric accreditation system device.
Yes.
I hope that people will be properly accredited. Then the issue of sorting, counting, announcement of result, and final declaration, I hope it will be seamless. And lastly, the uploading of result on IREV, because that is what many Nigerians will be following. IREV, how early was INEC able to upload this result? Ekiti is not a riverine area. There is no riverine local government there. And so the entire 2,445 polling units, we expect that before 10 p.m. tomorrow, all the results will have been uploaded so that the candidates who can fund a situation room can know their performance even before the final declaration of results.
And above all, Mr. Ojo, we also hope that the accord signed by all candidates in this election is not a mere signature appended to paper, and that they would walk the talk in tomorrow's exercise. And here's hoping that Ekiti residents will also shun vote buying and vote their conscience. We must thank you very much for coming. Mr. Jide Ojo is a public affairs analyst who has joined us on this conversation.
My pleasure. Do enjoy your weekend.